Good evening, my friends. I hope this finds you in a moment of peace, perhaps sitting in your favorite chair or looking out a window at the evening settling in. I'm grateful for your time. Time is a precious thing, especially as we grow older and understand its true value. So thank you for spending a little of yours with me tonight. I want to talk with you about something I've been thinking on for many years. It's about seeing people clearly. Not just looking at them, mind you, but truly seeing them. Seeing what's inside. Seeing the strength of their character, or perhaps the weakness of it. And I want to talk about why this matters, not just for the great questions of leadership or nations, but for you and me, in our daily lives, in our families, in our communities. There's a saying I once spoke, and people have been kind enough to remember it. I said that nearly all men can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power. Now, I've lived long enough to know that this isn't just true of men in positions of authority. It's true of all of us. Power comes in many forms. Sometimes it's the power of being right. Sometimes it's the power of being needed. Sometimes it's just the power of being older or wiser or having someone depend on you. And in those moments when we hold some measure of power over another person's happiness or well-being, that's when we truly show who we are. Tonight, I want us to walk through this idea together, slowly and carefully. I want to share with you what I've learned about character, about seeing people clearly, and about building a life that stands firm, not just when the winds blow against us, but when fortune smiles and we're given a little authority, a little influence, a little power, because that's when the real test begins. So settle in, if you would. Let's take our time. There's no rush. We'll talk like old friends by a fire, and I'll share what I've come to understand. Now, let me start with something we all know in our bones. Life is hard. It was hard when I was a boy splitting rails in Kentucky, and it's hard now in ways I couldn't have imagined back then. Every generation faces its struggles. Every person faces their own storms. And here's what I've observed. Most people, when pressed by hardship, rise to meet it. They find strength they didn't know they had. They endure. I've seen farmers lose their crops to drought and still plant again come spring. I've seen mothers lose children and still find the courage to love the ones who remain. I've seen men broken by war find their way back to gentleness. Adversity, you see, is a kind of teacher. It's not a kind teacher, I'll grant you that. It's harsh and unforgiving. But it does teach us. It shows us what we're made of. It strips away the comfortable illusions we have about ourselves and shows us the truth underneath. When I was a young man, I failed at nearly everything I tried. I lost elections. I lost in business. I fell into debts that took me years to repay. I lost the woman I loved. There were days, I'll confess, when I wondered if there was any point in continuing. But adversity has this way of simplifying things. When you're down low, you can't pretend anymore. You can't hide behind fine words or fancy manners. You're just you, stripped bare, trying to find one more reason to stand up and take another step. And most people do. They take that step. They endure their winters and wait for spring. They carry their burdens, sometimes for years, with a quiet dignity that humbles me when I think on it. The widow who manages on her small pension. The grandfather whose body aches, but who still helps his grandchildren with their lessons. The friend who sits with you through sickness, week after week, never complaining. This is the strength that adversity builds. It's a real strength. It's tested and proven. But here's what I want you to understand, and this is important. Adversity tests one kind of strength. It tests our ability to endure, to persevere, to survive. And that's no small thing. But it doesn't test everything. It doesn't test what we do when we're comfortable. It doesn't test what we do when we have choices. It doesn't test what we do when we have power. Power. Now there's a word that makes people uncomfortable. We think of power as something belonging to kings and presidents, to the rich and the mighty. But that's not the whole truth. Power is everywhere. It's in every relationship where one person has more than another. More authority, more knowledge, more control. And we all, at various times in our lives, hold some measure of power over others. A parent has power over a child, a teacher over a student, an employer over those who work for them. A person with health has a kind of power over one who's sick. A person with a sharp mind has power in conversation over one who's slower to speak. Even in small things, in daily moments, we find ourselves holding a little bit of power, a little bit of advantage, a little bit of ability to affect another person's experience. And it's in those moments, my friends, that character reveals itself. Let me tell you why. When we're struggling, when we're in adversity, we're usually trying to get through it. We're focused on survival, on endurance. There's not much room for choice. We do what we must. But when we have power, when we have options, when we have the ability to act without consequence, that's when we choose. And our choices show who we really are. Think of it like this. Imagine a man walking through a dark night. He's careful with his steps because he can't see clearly. He moves slowly, deliberately. He doesn't want to stumble. That's adversity. It makes us careful. But now, imagine that same man in broad daylight, on a clear path with no one watching. How does he walk then? Does he respect the path? Does he notice the flowers beside it? Or does he trample them without thinking? Does he leave the gate open or closed? Does he take only what he needs, or does he take more because he can? Power is like that daylight. It reveals what we do when we can do anything. It reveals whether we've built something solid inside ourselves or whether we've just been shaped by circumstances, behaving well only because we had no other choice. I remember a story from my years riding the circuit as a young lawyer. There was a judge, a man of some reputation, who was fair and measured in the courtroom. Everyone respected him. But one evening, at an inn where we were staying, I saw how he treated the young woman who brought our supper. She spilled a bit of water, just a splash, nothing of consequence. And he spoke to her in a way that made my blood run cold, sharp, cutting, cruel even. Here was a man who could be fair when the law required it, when people were watching, when his reputation was at stake. But when he had power over someone who couldn't answer back, someone whose opinion didn't matter to him, his true nature showed through. That's what I mean when I say power tests character. It tests whether our goodness is genuine or just a performance. It tests whether our kindness extends to those who can't reward us for it. It tests whether our principles hold firm when no one's keeping score. Now let me be clear. I'm not saying that adversity doesn't matter. It matters greatly. It builds resilience, patience, fortitude. These are real virtues, but they're not the whole of character. Character, true character, is what we do with our power, however small that power might be. It's how we treat people when we don't have to treat them well. It's the choices we make when we could just as easily make different ones and no one would blame us. So how do we see people clearly? How do we know who someone really is? This is a practical question, isn't it? We all want to know who we can trust. who we can rely on, who will treat us fairly, who will be honest with us. And as we get older, this becomes even more important. We depend on people more. We need help more often. We want to know that the people around us are good people, people of character. Here's what I've learned. Don't listen to what people say about themselves. Words are easy. Watch what they do, and especially watch how they treat people who have less power than they do. Watch how a person treats a waiter in a restaurant. Watch how they speak to someone who makes a mistake. Watch how they respond when someone disagrees with them. Watch what they do when they think no one important is watching. These moments are like small windows into the soul. They show you the truth. I'll give you an example. When I was president, I paid attention to how men treated my secretaries, the clerks, the messengers. Some men were all courtesy and deference when speaking to me, but short and dismissive with everyone else. Those men, I learned, couldn't be fully trusted. Their respect was tactical, not genuine. But the men who treated everyone with the same basic dignity, regardless of rank or position, those were men of character. Their courtesy came from something deeper than calculation. It came from a belief that every person has worth. Another thing I learned, watch how people respond when someone else succeeds. Do they celebrate, or do they find ways to diminish the achievement? Do they offer genuine praise, or do they change the subject? Envy is one of the quiet destroyers of character. It reveals a heart that measures its own worth by comparison, that can't bear to see others rise because it feels like a personal loss. And watch this too. How do people handle being wrong? We're all wrong sometimes, every one of us. We make mistakes, we misunderstand, we misjudge. But what do we do then? Do we admit it? Do we apologize? Do we make amends? Or do we defend ourselves, make excuses, blame others, anything to avoid that uncomfortable moment of acknowledging our error? A person who can say, "I was wrong," and mean it, without drama, without self-pity, just a simple acknowledgement and a willingness to do better, that's a person of character. These are small things, I know, daily things, but character lives in the small things. It's not built in moments of great crisis, though it may be tested there. It's built in the 1,000 small choices we make every day. Do we tell the truth when a lie would be easier? Do we keep our promises when circumstances change? Do we listen when someone speaks, really listen? Or do we just wait for our turn to talk? Do we admit when we don't know something, or do we pretend? Do we help when it's inconvenient? Do we hold our tongue when we're angry? These are the questions that reveal character. And here's the thing, my friends. We should ask these questions not just about others, but about ourselves. How do I treat people when I have power over them? What do I do when no one's watching? What kind of person have I become? Because character, you see, isn't fixed. It's not something we're born with, fully formed, that never changes. Character is built, stone by stone, choice by choice, day by day. And it can be built at any age. That's something I want you to hear clearly. You might be thinking, well, I'm old now. I am who I am. It's too late to change. But that's not true. It's never too late to choose to be better. It's never too late to practice patience one more time, to choose honesty when dishonesty would be easier, to extend mercy when you could justly withhold it. Let me talk now about what character looks like. What are we aiming for? What are the qualities that make a person strong in character? First, I'd say honesty, not just telling the truth, though that's part of it, but being honest in your dealings. Being straightforward, not trying to manipulate or deceive, not saying one thing and doing another. There's a simplicity to honest people that makes them restful to be around. You don't have to guess what they mean. You don't have to read between the lines. They say what they mean. and mean what they say. Second, humility. This is harder than it sounds. Humility doesn't mean thinking poorly of yourself. It means having an accurate understanding of yourself, knowing your strengths but also your limits, being willing to learn, being willing to admit you don't know, being willing to receive correction. Proud people are exhausting because they can never be wrong, which means everyone around them must always be careful, always managing the proud person's ego. Humble people are a relief because you can just be honest with them. Third, kindness. Real kindness, not the sugary sentimentality that some people mistake for it. Real kindness sees when someone is struggling and offers help without being asked. Real kindness speaks truth gently when truth needs speaking. Real kindness makes room for people's weaknesses without enabling them. Real kindness costs something. It requires attention, effort, sometimes sacrifice. But it's one of the most beautiful qualities a person can have. Fourth, self-control. This is what I think of when I think of strength. Not the ability to force others to your will, but the ability to govern yourself. To not say every thought that comes into your head. To not do everything you feel like doing. To wait when you want to act. To speak softly when you want to shout. To forgive when you want to hold a grudge. Self-control is power directed inward, and it's the foundation of all other virtues. Without it, we're just weather vanes, spinning with every wind of emotion or circumstance. Fifth, courage. Not the absence of fear, but action in spite of fear. The courage to do what's right even when it's unpopular. The courage to stand alone if necessary. The courage to change your mind when evidence requires it. The courage to be different. The courage to be kind in a cynical world. The courage to hope when others despair. And finally, consistency. This might seem like a small thing, but it's not. Consistency means you're the same person on Tuesday as you were on Monday. You don't change your principles based on convenience. You don't treat people well only when you're in a good mood. You can be relied upon. People know what to expect from you. There's a steadiness to you that gives others security. These qualities, these are the stones that character is built from. And notice, none of them require great intelligence or education or wealth or beauty or any of the things we often think make a person valuable. These are qualities anyone can develop. Anyone can choose to be honest today. Anyone can practice humility in this moment. Anyone can do one kind thing right now. But here's where power comes back into the picture. These qualities are easy to practice when they cost us nothing. It's easy to be honest when honesty benefits you. It's easy to be kind when kindness is returned. It's easy to be humble when you have nothing to be proud of. The test comes when practicing these virtues costs you something, when honesty might hurt you, when kindness is taken advantage of, when humility means giving up your advantage. That's when power and character meet. When you have the power to take, do you exercise restraint? When you have the power to hurt someone who hurt you, do you choose mercy instead? When you have the power to ignore someone's need because it's not your problem, do you help anyway? When you have the power to cut corners because no one will know, do you do the right thing regardless? I'll tell you a story that I think illustrates this. During the war, there was a young soldier who deserted. He was caught and sentenced to be shot. His mother came to me weeping, begging for his life. She told me he was just a boy, scared, that he'd made a terrible mistake but shouldn't die for it. I had the power to pardon him, But I also had a responsibility to maintain discipline in the army. Other men might desert if they thought there were no consequences. My generals advised against clemency. They had good military reasons, but I kept thinking about that boy, and I kept thinking about what power is for. Yes, I had the power to let the law take its course. That would have been the easy thing in a way. Just step back and let the machine of justice do its work. But I also had the power to show mercy. And it seemed to me that power unused in the service of mercy isn't power worth having. So I pardoned him. I sent him back to his unit. I don't know what became of him after that, whether he proved worthy of that mercy or not. But I know that I used my power the way I thought it should be used, to preserve life when possible, to give second chances, to recognize that we're all weak sometimes and we all need grace. That's what I mean about power testing character. It's easy to be merciful when you have no power. It costs you nothing. But when you have the power to punish and you choose mercy instead, that's when your character shows. And the same is true in smaller ways in our daily lives. When you have the power to win an argument with a harsh word, but you choose gentleness. When you have the power to exclude someone, but you choose inclusion. When you have the power to ignore someone's pain, but you choose to notice and care. Now, I want to speak particularly to those of you who are older, who've lived many years, who've accumulated some wisdom and experience. You have a particular kind of power, whether you recognize it or not. You have the power of your example. Younger people watch you. Your children, your grandchildren, your neighbors, people in your community. They watch how you age. They watch how you handle loss, how you face your limitations, how you treat others, how you speak about the world. You have the power to embitter them or to encourage them. You have the power to teach them that growing old means becoming bitter, rigid, critical, closed off. Or you can teach them that growing old means becoming gentler, wiser, more patient, more understanding. You have the power to complain about everything that's wrong with the world today, or you can acknowledge the problems while still finding things to appreciate, still offering hope, still showing that goodness persists. This is real power. It may not feel like it because it's quiet and indirect, but the influence of a kind elder, a wise grandparent, a patient teacher, this ripples out in ways we can't fully measure. And how you use this power, this influence, that's a test of your character. And here's something else I want you to consider. As we get older, we often need more help from others. We need someone to drive us places. We need help with things that used to be easy. We need more from our children, our friends, our caregivers. And this creates a kind of power dynamic where we might feel we have no power at all. But we do. We have the power to be gracious recipients of help or resentful ones. We have the power to express gratitude or to complain. We have the power to acknowledge the sacrifice others make for us or to take it for granted. Even in receiving help, even in being dependent, we can show character. We can show dignity. We can show appreciation. We can make it easier for people to help us by being kind about it, by not making them feel guilty, by recognizing that they have their own lives and challenges. This too is a test of character, and it's one that many of us will face as we age. Let me say a word about leadership, since this is often where the question of power and character becomes most visible. I've seen many kinds of leaders. Some lead by intimidation, by making people afraid to disappoint them. Some lead by manipulation, by playing people against each other. Some lead by charm, by making people want to please them. But the best leaders The ones who bring out the best in others, lead by example and by genuine care for the people they lead. A good leader understands that their position is a trust, not a prize. They're there to serve the mission and the people, not to be served by them. They make decisions based on what's best for all, not what's most comfortable for themselves. They take responsibility when things go wrong instead of blaming others. They give credit when things go right instead of claiming it for themselves. They listen more than they talk. They admit when they don't know. They change course when they're shown a better way. And here's the thing about this kind of leadership. It's not really about position at all. You can lead this way in any role. You can lead your family this way. You can lead in your community this way. You can lead in your friend group this way. Leadership is just influence in the service of good, and we all have some sphere where we can exercise that kind of influence. But it requires character. It requires that you genuinely care about others, not just about what they can do for you. It requires that you discipline yourself, that you hold yourself to high standards, even when no one's checking. It requires that you be honest, even when lies would be easier. It requires that you be kind, even when people are frustrating. It requires that you persevere, even when you're tired. I'm reminded of something I used to say about my responsibility as president. I said that I never wanted to be in a position where I had to choose between doing what was right and doing what would help me politically. I wanted those two things to align, and when they didn't, I knew I had to choose what was right and let the politics fall where they would. That's not because I'm a saint. I'm far from it. But it's because I understood that power without character leads to corruption, to the slow erosion of the soul, to becoming someone you wouldn't want to be. And that's true for all of us, not just presidents. When we use our power, whatever form it takes, without reference to what's right, when we make decisions based only on what benefits us, or what's convenient, or what we can get away with, we corrupt ourselves. We become smaller. We become less than we could be. But when we use our power in the service of what's good and right and true, when we exercise restraint, when we choose mercy, when we serve rather than dominate, we grow. We become more fully human. We become the kind of people we'd want our grandchildren to become. So, how do we build this kind of character? How do we become people who use power well? Let me offer some practical thoughts. Not as someone who's mastered these things, but as someone who's thought about them for a long time and tried, with varying success, to live them. First, practice self-reflection. Take time regularly to think about your actions, your words, your thoughts, not in a self-flagellating way, but honestly. Did I treat that person well? Did I tell the truth? Did I do what I said I'd do? Where did I fall short? Where did I do well? This kind of honest self-assessment keeps us grounded. It keeps us from developing the blind spots that power often creates. Second, seek out people who will tell you the truth. Don't surround yourself only with people who agree with you or flatter you. Find friends who will gently tell you when you're wrong, when you're being unfair, when you're fooling yourself. And when they do, listen. Don't defend, don't explain, just listen and consider whether they might be right. This is hard, especially as we get older and we feel we've earned the right to not be corrected. But the day we stop learning is the day we start declining. Third, practice small disciplines. Character is built in small moments. So practice telling the truth in small things. Practice keeping small promises. Practice small acts of kindness. Practice small moments of self-control. Don't wait for the big tests of character. Use every day as an opportunity to strengthen yourself. It's like exercise for the soul. Small, consistent efforts compound over time into real strength. Fourth, serve others. Find ways to help people who can't help you in return. Volunteer. Visit the sick. Listen to the lonely. Help the struggling. This keeps your heart soft. It reminds you of what matters. It takes your focus off yourself and puts it where it belongs, on the needs of others. And it uses whatever power or resources or time you have in the service of good. Fifth, embrace difficulty. Don't always look for the easy way. Sometimes choose the harder right over the easier wrong. Practice doing things that are good for you, but not fun. Practice delayed gratification. Practice enduring discomfort for a worthy purpose. This builds the strength of will that you'll need when real tests come. Sixth, forgive. Hold no grudges. Let go of resentments. This doesn't mean you have to maintain relationships with people who hurt you, but it means you release the poison of bitterness. You choose not to let their wrong against you corrode your soul. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. It's a way of refusing to let someone else's character flaw diminish your own character. And finally, remember why this matters. Character matters because it's the foundation of a life well lived. It's what allows you to sleep peacefully at night. It's what makes you trustworthy to others. It's what gives your life integrity, meaning, wholeness. Without character, all your achievements are hollow. With character, even a simple life is noble. As I come toward the end of our time together tonight, I want to circle back to where we started. Nearly all men can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power. I hope you understand now what I meant by this. It's not that adversity doesn't matter. It does. It shapes us and strengthens us. But adversity isn't the final test. The final test is what we do when we don't have to struggle, when we have options, when we have power. And I hope you also understand that this isn't just about great men in positions of authority. It's about you. It's about me. It's about all of us in our daily lives, in our families, in our relationships, in our communities. We all have some measure of power. We all have some influence, and how we use it reveals who we truly are. The good news is that character can be built. You're not stuck with who you are today. You can choose right now to be a little more honest, a little more kind, a little more humble, a little more patient. You can choose to use whatever power you have in the service of good. You can choose to see people clearly and to become someone worth seeing clearly in return. I think of character like a tree. It grows slowly. You don't plant a seed today and have shade tomorrow. It takes years of putting down roots, of weathering storms, of reaching toward the light. But eventually, if you're patient and consistent, you become something solid, something that provides shelter for others, something that stands firm when winds blow, something that endures. And isn't that what we all want? To be people of substance? To be people who can be relied upon? To be people whose word means something? To be people whose presence makes the world a little better? That's what character gives us. That's what we're building toward, day by day, choice by choice. So I want to encourage you, my friends, wherever you are in your journey. If you're young, build your character now. Don't wait until you're older to become a person of integrity. Start today. Practice the small virtues. Make the hard choices. Become someone you'll be proud to be. If you're in the middle of life, with many responsibilities and pressures, don't let the busyness of living cause you to compromise your character. Hold fast to what's right. Use your power well. Remember what matters. And if you're older, as many of you listening tonight are, know that it's not too late. You can still grow. You can still change. You can still become more of who you were meant to be. And you have the added privilege of being an example, of showing others what a life of character looks like in its later years. See people clearly. Look past their words to their actions. Look past their successes to how they treat others. Look past their image to their character. And equally important, let yourself be seen clearly. Don't hide behind masks or pretenses. Be genuine, be honest, be yourself, but your best self. Build a life of such integrity that you have nothing to hide, nothing to be ashamed of, nothing you hope others won't discover. This is the strength of character. Not the strength to dominate others, but the strength to govern yourself. Not the strength to get your way, but the strength to do what's right regardless. Not the strength that demands respect, but the strength that earns it quietly through consistent goodness. And when you have power, as you inevitably will in some form or another, use it gently. Use it justly. Use it in the service of what's good. Remember that power is a test, and character is what allows you to pass that test. Be kind to those who depend on you. Be fair to those under your authority. Be generous to those who need your help. Be patient with those who frustrate you. Be humble in your dealings with all people. This is how we build a good life. This is how we build good families. This is how we build good communities. This is how we build a good society. One person at a time, choosing character over convenience, choosing integrity over advantage, choosing service over dominance, choosing the hard right over the easy wrong. My friends, thank you for your time tonight. Thank you for considering these thoughts with me. I hope something I've said here has been helpful to you, has given you something to think about, has encouraged you in your own journey. We're all walking the same path, trying to figure out how to be good people in a complicated world. We'll make mistakes, we'll fall short. But if we keep trying, if we keep choosing character day by day, we'll become people we can be proud of. People our families can rely on. People our communities need. People who use whatever power we have in the service of what's good and right and true. May you walk gently through the remainder of your days. May you see people clearly and be seen clearly in return. May you build character that stands firm like a great oak, providing shelter and shade for all who come near you. And may you use whatever power you have with wisdom, with mercy, with justice, and with love. Good night, my friends, and may God bless you on your journey.